So, who knows what the number one preventable thing that you can do for decreasing your stroke risk? Who knows what the number one preventable risk factor is? Let's think about the presentation we just heard. Who wants to take a guess? Yes, high blood pressure is the number one preventable risk factor for stroke. So thank you for your presentation because it informs a lot of the work that I do. Okay, so I want to make sure, I heard earlier that everyone was turning their phone off. Is that true? Okay, and that's not just because I'm a control freak, which I am, but it has nothing to do with this. That's because how many people get group texts? Like who's got, okay, yeah, and who's got some really active group texts out there? Perfect, yeah. So sometimes when I'm doing things or I'm working, like my phone is blowing up. My cousins, we got this really great group chat, but like, I'm like, you guys, do any of you guys have jobs? What is going on? So I have to like turn it off. And the interesting thing about that is happens when you have a stroke too. So in the United States, someone has a stroke every 40 seconds. So in the 10 minutes that I'm talking to you today, 15 of you have now become stroke survivors. And what happens with stroke, and I know this because not only am I a scientist and I do research, but I'm also a neuro-ICU nurse. I've spent my whole career working with stroke patients. We have symptoms after stroke, right? We don't always feel great. And I know that, again, not just because I'm a nurse, because I think a lot of what you'll hear is that a lot of times, I'm sure you've maybe felt like this too, maybe a doctor or a nurse told you how to feel versus how you were feeling. Does that resonate with anybody? It's happened to me too. So I know this not just because of my background, but because I'm also a granddaughter, okay? This is my grandma, Pauline. Pauline, I got a cousin, Paulina. We keep it in the family with the names, okay? And that's cutie me. My grandma had a sick heart when she was young. She had 4 strokes. She had 4 times that her brain was impacted, 4 times that she felt a bunch of different symptoms after, and she ended up dying at 64, which to me in this picture, I'm like, oh my God, 64 is so old, right? But now at 35, I'm like, that is very young. And, you know, I think when we think about the messages our body is sending, for a lot of people, some messages just arrive too late. And so when I grew up, I knew that I always wanted to fix people's brains. There is video footage of me. I looked for it for this talk and I couldn't find it. But there's video footage of me saying, I'm going to be a brain surgeon. And as you can tell, I've always been extremely type A since a young age. I'm going to be a brain surgeon. I'm going to fix people's brains. I'm not going to let this happen to people like grandma. This is my mom. Her name's Carol. That's my oldest. That's my son, but he's 7 now. But she's a nurse. And she is a wound care nurse. And I knew I wanted to be a brain surgeon. I'm like, I'm going to be a doctor. That's going to be it. I know there's doctors in the room. No shade to the physicians in the room. But I spent my summers doing what every kid wants to do, following my mom and watching her do wound treatments on people. And I learned that providing care as a nurse is so much more than just being like, oh, your butt is falling off. Let me take a look at that. You're seeing the messages, right? The messages that are overt, that are there. Yes, we have a wound. Yes, we need to fix it. But there are also messages being sent that are unseen. You can read the room. Nurses are trained in a way to walk in and they'll say, I don't know what's going on with this patient. Their oxygen isn't great. And the nurse will walk in and say, well, that's because their oxygen is unplugged from the wall, right? Like we're trained to see things holistically. And so that has made me very passionate about the work that I do and why I chose to pursue nursing. So symptoms don't travel alone. There are stroke survivors that I've interviewed. One who told me that he felt like his stroke, he was life flighted in to the hospital, high urgency, right? Great. Saved his life, awesome. Was told, hey, you're moving your arm, you get to go home. We've decided that you look good, you get to go home. He felt like he was parachuted out with a hole in the parachute. He's like, you go home, all these new feelings, all these new changes. You don't know if they're from your stroke. You don't know if you're supposed to be feeling this way. Maybe we've said, hey, your arm looks good. You can move, you can talk. You don't need rehab. You don't need these things. And so people go home after their stroke and they don't do well. And we're surprised as scientists. Well, we don't know. We have the newest technology. We pulled that clot out of their brain in 90 minutes, which is what the guidelines tell us to do. How come they're back in the hospital? Why can't we get these people well and back to their community? And that's because if you think of those group texts that you're silencing on your phone right now, that's what your body's doing after a stroke. Sometimes maybe one symptom comes in, sometimes maybe another, but then sometimes there's days where your phone is blowing up. And the same thing happens to your body, and it's all happening at one time. So I have made this my life's work to figure out what survivors are really saying. I used to work in neurocritical care, and I thought that the only value that I could give would be to save the person's life. Then I took over running a stroke program, and I realized that we're actually very good at saving people's lives, but we're not very good at keeping them well and keeping them to get back to their lives and the person that they were before, because we just can't expect that. They've gone through something that they didn't expect to have, and it's changed who they are forever, and we kind of completely overlook that. So what I'm interested in, what are survivors really saying? How are they feeling? And how can we as scientists and as nurses and as doctors do better to take that holistic approach to our survivors? Okay, so you go to the doctor, the 15 of you that have just had a stroke, sorry, and they say, oh my gosh, Paula, how are you doing? You look great, you're walking. And I say, I don't feel great. I've had really bad headaches. I'm not really sleeping. I'm having a hard time at work. My kids are bothering me, although that was happening before the stroke, right? Like, you don't know, like there's a lot going on. And the doctor writes down, Paula comes in, middle-aged, obese woman. Okay, rude, right? We've all seen the notes we get on our patient portal. You're like, why'd you have to do me like that? But okay, I'm working on it. And then, that all goes into the medical record. And if you think about your medical record, like the iceberg from the Titanic, the little part you can see above the water, that's your blood pressure, that's your heart rate, that's your temperature. All that stuff under the water is in like what we call free text. All that stuff. Paula said she doesn't feel well. Oh, they have a headache. And guess where that goes? Who wants to guess? Nowhere. Ding, ding, ding. And people love to hear that the things they tell their doctors goes nowhere. That's nice. That makes us feel good, right? So I was interested in, because the way we do research now with stroke survivors is we ask them questions. We ask them surveys. How do you feel? Do you feel depressed? No, check. Great. You're good. Have a good day. And so that's what we tell people. But those are our questions. That's what we've decided as nurses and doctors and providers that we think are important to you as a stroke survivor. We're not hearing what you're saying and letting that inform our work. However, I was like, this is what I want. I want the patient adjacent perspective. I want to know what's going on. Well, that's like thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of notes, and I probably would have never finished my PhD if I was going to manually read it. So what did I do? I taught a computer to do it, as we do a lot of things we don't have time to do, right? So I did something called natural language processing, right? Everyone's like, what is that? I'll tell you. I basically taught a computer to read notes the way that a human would read it, and it pulls out every single word that could be a symptom, and it makes it a piece of data. And then I do math, and I look at how those little data word pieces symptoms fit together. And so I looked at 1,100 notes out of 115 stroke survivors that go home, and what did I find? 3 big patterns of symptoms, 3 group texts that people belong to. So I looked to see what group texts are we going and who are we putting in these group texts. And the first one I want to bring up because I think it's really important to think about the whole stroke survivor. First one was this emotional group, and they all were exhibiting symptoms of depression, except when you looked in their medical record, in that part above the iceberg, not a single one of them was diagnosed with depression. So what does that tell us? The patients are telling us, but we're not hearing. Then there was mixed, and the mixed group had symptoms all across the board, 25 different symptoms, up to 12 symptoms at a time, which again, that group text is blowing up. And guess who belonged to that symptom group? African American women, which we know the literature tells us they're already at an increased risk for cardiometabolic disease. They already have a lot going on. And guess what? Now after they have their stroke, they get it the worst, which is not surprising, but it's there, and that's not what we look for after a stroke. And then the last one, I always call my men with tummy ache groups, because that was mostly men that had GI problems. So not to minimize them, but they had tummy aches, okay? So what does this mean as a nurse, as a scientist, as a granddaughter, as a mom, as a mother? Like, what does this mean for a member of the community, right? Like, Every message deserves to be read, but we can only do that if we know what the accurate data is. And so what I want from you today, I mean, I think we've all probably gone to the doctor and felt like maybe we're not being heard or maybe we're not being listened to, but like that data is going in the medical record, and people like myself, we are looking at it and we are taking that perspective. And so when you go to the doctor, how are you feeling? Fine. Like, really? Why are you at the doctor? Like, so, I need you to think about when you go to the doctor, these 15 stroke survivors who are going to have to go to their follow-up appointments right now. Sorry. Hopefully you guys get discharged with rehab services. I want you to think about telling how you really feel and putting that information out there, because the only way that we can help and we can individualize care and know who's going to belong to each group text is by having accurate data that you're putting into there. And so it's more of a help me, help you situation. And I just hope that you all take that with you, because there are going to be more and more stroke survivors in the world, about 4% of the United States population, which I think we have a math girly here who is doing statistics here. But that's a lot of people who are going to be walking around as stroke survivors, and we want to keep them well and keep them healthy for all of the reasons that Doris said, for all the impact that has on our society. So thank you very much. Now that I see this, I'm thinking I should have put my phone number up there to really loop in the group text analogy here. You guys could have blown up my phone. So thank you very much. That's it.